You're listening to Precinct 444, a podcast network from the National Law Enforcement Museum. Today, we're bringing you an episode from Lifeline, offering a holistic wellness approach focused on supporting American law enforcement, promoting resilience, safety, and survivability. Welcome to Part 2 of Inside the National Traffic Safety Summit. In our last episode, we learned about the persistent dangers officers face while operating on our nation's roadways and the need to promote a stronger culture of safety within all U.S. law enforcement agencies. Today, we'll hear about strategies being employed to create a safer environment for officers on the road. Listen out for Lieutenant Commander Melanie Lee Fowler, FACE Investigator, U.S. Public Health Service, CDC NIOSH, Gordon Graham, Risk Manager, Attorney, and Law Enforcement Policy Expert, Graham Research Consultants, and Todd Lease, Traffic Incident Management Coordinator, Pennsylvania Turnpike Commission.
Thank you. It is my pleasure and honor to be here to talk to you today about the important work that we do at CDC NIOSH. All right. So the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health, or NIOSH, is the only federal research institute charged with studying ways to improve working conditions for U.S. workers. We're located within the CDC and do not regulate occupational safety and health laws. So we are not OSHA. We get that a lot. Are you OSHA? No, we're not OSHA. We study research, and research is data-driven, and we work within multidisciplinary teams in all industries and occupations, including police officers. Our main goal is to generate new knowledge in the field of occupational safety and health and then transfer that into practice. As we mentioned, the Division of Safety Research, the mission for the Division of Safety Research is to address the safety issues in the workplace, and it's the focal point for traumatic injury research at NIOSH. Through our research, we identify, reduce, and prevent work-related injuries and deaths across all industries, and our research programs are listed here, but specifically, I'm going to talk to you today about the field investigations. So why do we research these workplace fatalities? So in the last 10 years, you can see these are the fatal occupational injuries in the last 10 years. This equates to approximately 15 U.S. workers die on the job from traumatic injury a day. Within DSR is the Fatality Assessment and Control Evaluation Team, which is the team that I fall under. We are a small team, as you can see. So in an effort to address the deaths, the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health Fatality Program, FACE program, and state FACE programs, which I'll go over in just a second about the differences between the two. We study workplace injuries and prepare reports and write recommendations, find out what the contributing factors are of these injuries, write prevention recommendations, and we prepare these reports and it hopes that we can prevent similar deaths in the future because worker safety matters. So as I mentioned, there's two components of the FACE program. The objective is to identify work situations at high risk for fatal injury and to formulate and disseminate prevention strategies to those who can intervene in the workplace, or you all. Two components of FACE consist of NIOSH FACE, which began in 1982. This is underneath the Division of Safety Research that I mentioned. It's the Fatality Investigation Team where we receive case identification from state and federal agencies. In addition, we have targets for causes of death that have included confined spaces, electrocutions, machine-related, falls from elevations, working youth, logging. And then state FACE began in 1989, and currently we have 8 state health or labor departments that have cooperative agreements with NIOSH for conducting their own surveillance for targeted investigations. And they do their own target investigations based on the NIOSH targets as well as their own state targets. And currently we have California, Kentucky, Louisiana, Massachusetts, Michigan, New York, Oregon, and Washington. Again, the primary intent of this program is to provide interested users from across the nation full text of hundreds of fatality investigation reports. What happened? Let's prevent it from happening again. In addition to the FACE program, we have the Firefighter Fatality Investigation and Prevention Program. I'm curious, though, of those of you in the room here, how many were already aware of what the NIOSH FACE program was? Okay. How about the NIOSH Firefighter Fatality and Investigation Program? A few. So about the same amount of numbers. I'm a little shocked that the Firefighter Fatality Investigation Program is a little bit more known because there are more investigations. In 1998, Congress had recognized the need to address the national problem of work-related firefighter deaths. Then they funded NIOSH to implement a firefighter safety initiative, which in turn is the NIOSH Firefighter Fatality Investigation Program. They study workplace firefighter fatalities. Since the program start, NIOSH had investigated approximately 40% of firefighter-related fatalities. So that brings me here. From 2014 to 2017, NIOSH had a project funded by an interagency agreement with NIJ to conduct law enforcement officer motor vehicle crash and struck by fatality investigations as a pilot study. Why? Because line of duty deaths from crashes are preventable. We've heard that today. The data on crashes was hard to come by and little evidence on how to prevent them. There was minimal research into the risk factors. So we thought, could NIOSH model of investigating occupational deaths work in law enforcement? So where we investigate, develop the report and recommendations and share within the law enforcement community. So under this pilot study, there were 5 law enforcement officer fatality investigations, 2 of which were crashes and 3 were struck by, and I will go into further detail of those here in a minute. But the team is now moving forward with those investigations. The pilot study, as I mentioned, ended in 2017, so we took one of our target areas as a FACE, Fatality Assessment and Control Evaluation, FACE team. We took one of our target areas as law enforcement officer motor vehicle fatality investigations. So we're continuing to do those even though the pilot study has ended. Situations studied under this include motor vehicle crash while in pursuit, patrol, emergency response, or commute between duty station, struck by motor vehicle while operating at a traffic stop, roadblock, other emergency situation, or just assisting other motorists, and law enforcement officer ground vehicles, and we excluded motorcycles for this study. The first step of our investigation, we evaluate the location where the death occurred and examine the work site and collect facts about what happened both before, during, and after the event. The investigations follow the public health model, and they're conducted on a cooperative basis. So we're not going to come into a department without the department allowing us to be there. We interview law enforcement officers, and this is a prime basis of our investigations is the interviews. So we interview these law enforcement officers, agency witnesses, again, on a cooperative basis. And these investigations are impartial and transparent, and we do not place blame. We also do not name any names in our report, any personal identifiers in our reports, so that anybody could read them and we can't tell exactly who we're talking about. It's a study, it's a case study. We learn from it. And that's the intent of this, is to write these reports so that anybody could read them and they can learn something from them. So some sources for our investigation include site visit, training SOPs, the police academy instructors, witnesses, non-civilian witnesses, firefighters, EMS responders, dash camera videos, department reports and reconstruction reports, and the coroner and medical examiner report. The next step, the investigators analyze the data that's collected and they create a report. The reports are anonymous, as I mentioned. Do not place name of the worker, witnesses, or others involved in the incident, and don't place blame. The report just simply describes what happened, the contributing factors, and has prevention recommendations and some lessons learned. The fourth step is the report is then given to the company or the department and where the incident occurred for them to do some fact check, and they can provide comment to. We also send it out to subject matter experts so that they can check and make sure that we're on the right track when we're making these recommendations. Then the report is then published on our web pages, both the FACE web page as well as we have a law enforcement officer topic motor vehicle web page as well. So why study law enforcement officers specifically? Well, you've heard the numbers. You can see from this chart, 2011 to 2020, 1,762 line of duty deaths. 367 of those were vehicle crashes, 21% of the total. 131 were struck-bys. That's 7% of the total. Preventable fatalities. I know Nick had mentioned earlier about a crash investigation that we had done. As I mentioned, there were 2 crash and 3 struck by. For the sake of this presentation, I'm only going over the struck by, but the crash all involved speed, seatbelt wearing, multiple jurisdictions reporting at the same time, running into each other at an intersection, driving skills that did not match the roadway, high speed, wet road, coming off a sharp turn made it very difficult. But for the sake of this presentation, I'm going to stick with the struck bys, and I'll show you why here in a second. This was actually the first of the investigation that we conducted underneath the pilot project involving an officer being struck on a interstate highway in New Mexico. As you can see from the photo, or can probably tell, it was icy roadway conditions. So this happened on December 5th, 2013. A sheriff's office sergeant was fatally struck. He was investigating several motor vehicle crashes on an interstate. He had been dispatched in response to reports of multiple minor motor vehicle crashes under blizzard conditions. There were disabled vehicles situated on the shoulder of the northbound and southbound lane, as well as in the median. So officers from state and county law enforcement agencies had responded to the scene, and during the response, the sergeant had crossed the highway to speak to another officer. He was facing traffic. However, a passing motorist lost control of his vehicle and slid onto the shoulder, striking the sergeant. He was transported to a nearby trauma center. He succumbed to his injuries the following day. We look at this and we say, okay, what happened? So here are some contributing factors that we found that are also written in the report. The weather, that's pretty obvious. This was an occurrence of a severe weather with little or no warning, causing low visibility and icy road surfaces. The motorist, not moving over or slowing down to a speed permitting to come to a complete stop if needed. Scene management and traffic control. There was multiple minor motor vehicle crashes in the same location within a short amount of time, which limited the resources to commit to this response. This was also a low-frequency, high-risk event, meaning the number and proximity of weather-related crashes in the area were unusual. So you think about that, it's unusual, so are we really prepared for it? The second one involved a trooper being struck while investigating a crash on an interstate in Oklahoma. This one was a 30-year-old Oklahoma Highway Patrol trooper, and it occurred on January 31st. He had responded to a crash involving a tanker truck and was on the scene when it occurred. The tanker truck was overturned, blocking the westbound lane of the interstate, and had extended into the median. The 2 troopers were standing in the westbound lane upstream of the lane closure in the area that was partially blocked to traffic, but they had their backs to oncoming traffic. They were assessing the scene, and at that time, a motorist in the westbound lane partially left the roadway, went around the patrol car, and struck both troopers, fatally injuring one and critically injuring the other. Contributing factors in this include a distracted motorist. There's our D drivers. So by combining the phone carrier reports from the time that the motorist claimed that he began driving until the crash occurred, 144 cell phone transactions occurred. Within 16 minutes prior to the crash, the motorist sent or received 19 text messages, more than one text per minute. So this is a prime example of a distracted motorist. This case, the driver was criminally charged with first-degree manslaughter as well. So another contributing factor in this would be the visibility in the weather. It was dark, rainy, wet roadway. The law enforcement officers were standing in a partially blocked lane of traffic upstream from the lane closure. They had their backs to the direction of oncoming traffic. They weren't aware of their situation. The incident occurred during scene size up, so there was a lot of moving pieces initially when this goes on. There were also roaming civilians that were distracting the law enforcement officers, and there was issues with the 911 communications. I was not the lead author on this one, so I don't know the exact details, but other than that there were issues with the communication system. This next case is actually the case that I was involved as the lead investigator on, so I know it well. If you have questions, I would prefer you choose this one. No, I'm kidding. But I was the lead author and investigator on this incident, and involved a 25-year-old police officer that was struck by a motorhome and a trailer combination on an interstate in Tennessee on a highway. He had responded to a jackknife trailer and truck combination, and the truck was blocking the on-ramp to an interstate. So he was there to assist with traffic control. So he positioned his patrol unit south of the ramp in lane 3, and a Tennessee Department of Transportation help truck. Is anybody familiar with what those are? Yes. Yes. A help truck had positioned their vehicle in lane 4 and on the shoulder of the road. So this is a diagram, and this kind of give you an idea of what happened in the path of the motorhome from left to right. The red line represents the path of the motorhome, and the yellow big block is the motorhome. Back here in the about middle of the screen is the patrol unit of where the officer, the fallen officer's vehicle, as well as the Tennessee Department of Transportation help truck. And it's kind of small to see, but the two individuals standing between their vehicles. So this is the path of the motorhome, showing, let's see, they were facing each other. Between their two vehicles, they were discussing traffic when a large motorhome pulling a trailer was traveling towards them. The Tennessee Department of Transportation help truck operator realized that this motorhome's not stopping or merging as everybody else has, and he ran and was able to escape, whereas the police officer had turned facing the motorhome and began waving his arms to try to get his attention. Yelled, "Look out," and unfortunately the motorhome took the path in between the two vehicles, struck the officer, and drug him for 117 feet. The motorist told the investigating officer that as he approached the crash scene, he saw a dynamic messaging sign approximately 2 miles prior to this incident that read, "Right lane closed ahead." Well, right, 2 lanes were closed ahead. So he kept traveling the speed limit thinking, I have time, I'm going to get over, but he claimed that traffic in lane 1 and 2 was so dense it prevented him from merging over again. This is a motorhome pulling a trailer as well. So he took what he considered the path of least resistance, and he chose to drive between the police vehicle and the Tennessee Department of Transportation help truck, knowing that the police officer was standing between the vehicle. So the crash investigation unit had investigated this incident, and during their investigation, they used an older police department command vehicle that was similar in size and geometry of this motorhome that struck the officer to recreate the motorist actions. Because the motorist had claimed 900 feet, he came around a blind curve and he couldn't see it. So to recreate this, I can see this in this photo. Can you? It's clearly visible. The investigator also used mathematical computations to determine if the motorist should have been able to see the patrol unit and the help truck to perceive the situation and stop within 900 feet. After viewing photographs taken from the scene, it was determined that the motorist didn't begin braking until he came in contact with the police officer. At this time, he applied emergency braking. Given the viewing distance, it was concluded that the motorhome driver should have been able to stop in time with normal braking. Contributing factors in this incident include the motorhome driver did not slow down and merge left, traffic control in the location of the law enforcement officer and the vehicle position. You can see there's just enough room in between those two vehicles. Had the patrol unit maybe been staggered a little bit or the larger vehicle been on the inside, there's, some back and forth with vehicle positions. The law enforcement officer was also looking away from oncoming traffic. And there was a delay in updating that dynamic message sign. As I mentioned, it said right lane closed ahead, not right 2 lanes closed ahead. So to stop this disturbing trend, we have developed an infographic based on the lessons learned from those 3 NIOSH-based law enforcement officer motor vehicle struck by fatality investigations, which I believe you have a copy of or will have a copy of in your swag bag. I encourage you, as a matter of fact, I challenge you to place these in a prominent location within your department to remind your officers the steps that they should take. These are some good prevention recommendations when they are working at traffic stops. And if you happen to do that, feel free to send me a picture of it. I'd love to see it. I'm sure the crew that helped create this would love to see that as well. So going through these recommendations, the first is to maintain situational awareness. We talk about keeping your head on a swivel, especially while working in a temporary traffic control zone. There are many reasons why motorists fail to move over. They can be vision impaired, under the influence of drugs or alcohol, distracted, have medical conditions that affect their judgment and abilities. So officers should train and work under the premise of if it's moving and you're not driving it, it's out to kill you. So think about that. I mean, that's pretty serious. If you're not the one that's in control of it, the only thing that you can control is yourself. They should also wear the ANSI-approved tearaway high visibility vest when working outside. Anytime you're exposed to vehicle traffic or working around traffic, wear that vest. The more clearly visible that you are, the more likely someone's going to see you and won't hit you. Follow your agency's standard operating procedures on temporary traffic control zones. SOPs allow for all officers to make decisions rapidly, build confidence through knowledge in the procedures that will be the same in all incidents. This enhances efficiency, effectiveness, and safety. SOPs should address what resources are needed for various types of incidents for temporary traffic control for roadways and highways within a jurisdiction. And fourth, understand the incident command structure. ICS is a management system designed to integrate resources to effectively attack a problem. ICS has flexibility to accommodate varying sets of circumstances. It uses a systems approach for command and control of incidents involving response from single or multiple jurisdictions or agencies. It allows agencies to effectively manage emergency incidents and ensure the safety of all responders. Designates the specific duties of all participants, and determines who will oversee the scene with responsibility for monitoring the overall response. So again, this infographic can also be printed from our NIOSH web pages that I mentioned. And again, you have a copy of it now. For daily briefings and trainings displayed in a prominent location to remind officers how to protect themselves while they're outside of their patrol car. So again, I challenge you to do that. We also have an upcoming report. As I mentioned, we did these 5 fatality investigations underneath that pilot project. So we're continuing doing these investigations again under the FACE program. as law enforcement officer motor vehicle fatality investigations as one of our target areas. So we have an upcoming report that involved a officer struck while assisting on with a temporary traffic control on interstate in Texas. This one involved an officer being struck by an individual that was under the influence of a central nervous system drug. It's prescription. And again, this is one of those D drivers, even though it was a legally prescribed medication, the dosing may not have been right for the individual. But this is an upcoming report. It should be posted fairly soon. We're still working on the review process, but we're getting there. So I can't go over contributing factors at this point until it gets approved. But I encourage you to go to the website and you can read the full reports of those investigations and future ones that we do as well. I just want to take a quick second here to mention our partner support. So across our studies, we partnered with many agencies and stakeholder groups. This is only a sampling of some of those partnerships over the years, but I just wanted to highlight that our projects and our outputs are not possible without the help and the support of many groups, agencies, and officers.
For those of you I've never met, you heard the introduction. The California Highway Patrol was kind enough to hire me in 1973. Got out of the academy. They sent all the new kids to Los Angeles. We had a very short field break-in period, and I was assigned to a car. And shortly into my career, less than a month into my career, I was assigned to a fixed post detail on an on-ramp in downtown Los Angeles. If you need to know, the Hoover on-ramp to westbound Santa Monica Freeway. There was a Caltrans issue there, and so they needed CHP officers there. So there was a motorcycle cop named Ron and me in a car, and for 3 days, we did this fixed post detail. Day one, this woman gets on the on-ramp in a brand new BMW, and absolutely gorgeous woman. She honks the horn and waves at the motorcycle cop, Ron. Next day, same woman, same time, gets on the freeway, honks the horn and blows him a kiss. Day three, she comes on the on-ramp, rolls down the window, motions to me. I come over, she gives me a card in an envelope, and you could smell the perfume on it. And she said, "Would you give that to the motorcycle officer?" And so I walked over and I gave it to Ron, and there was a very graphic message in there. And he got on his motorcycle and followed her away, and I didn't see him for the rest of the day. And I said, I got to be a motorcycle cop. And for 10 years, I rode that stupid thing and never had anything like that happen to me. But that's another story. But where I did luck out was in going to school. What people remember in the introduction, oh, he's a lawyer. Yes, I've had a law practice now for 40 years. But prior to law school, I did my graduate work at the Institute of Safety and Systems Management. And as I look at my life today, where I am, that's made a big difference. The ISSM, for those of you who have no clue, our military during World War II had a terrible, terrible safety record. For those of you who have never read the great book Unbroken, the story of Louis Zamperini, later a movie by Angelina Jolie, but like every book to movie, the book's 1,000 times better. One piece of data jumped out of the book and floored me. The United States Army Air Corps training pilots during World War II was suffering on average 19 fatalities per day in training exercises. Not isolated. 4 years ago, we had the 75th anniversary of D-Day. What did we learn 4 years ago? How many U.S. soldiers died storming Utah Beach on D-Day? 197. What a lot of people don't know or forgot is that 1 month prior to D-Day, on a training exercise getting ready to storm Utah Beach, we lost hundreds of our personnel due to an accident. Holy moly. At the end of the war, the military said, we got a problem. We've got a problem. So in 1950, they contracted with the University of Southern California to build this Institute of Safety and Systems Management. Now, my guess is they could have contracted with UCLA, but they probably wanted it done right. So they went to USC and said, build a program to educate military leaders on the principles of risk. And during that 3-year window, I got hooked on the study of tragedy. And I've got a limited amount of time here, but let me tell you something that really got me started. One of my professors was Chater Mason. Another professor I had was Ted Ferry. Another professor I had was Harry Hurt. Harry Hurt. Now, in my viewing audience here, who in here rides a motorcycle? Have you read the Hurt Report? Have you read the Hurt Report? Has anybody read the Hurt Report? Harry Hurt was one of my professors, and it's an entire military group. He was former military. I'm sitting there. Class ends. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that's it. See you next week. Gordon, can I see you after class? And what did I do? Professor Hurt? Gordon, I'm starting to think that you're non-military. That's correct, sir. What do you do? Sir, I'm with the California Highway Patrol. Are you a motorcycle officer? I am. Gordon, I've got a federal grant and I'm studying motorcycle fatalities. Would you like to be part of my collection team? What's the answer to that? What's the answer? Oh, absolutely. Harry Hurt and his crew of investigators over a 3-year window studied just about 1,000 motorcycle fatalities. I was part of that collection team. And very quickly, we identified the number one cause of motorcycle fatality, left-hand turns. And if you've been riding for any period of time, you've almost been whacked on a left-hand turn. You're going down the road, minding your own business, and some fool makes a left directly in front of you. They regularly hit motorcycle riders, and then the cops show up, and they talk to the driver of the car that made the left, and the driver of the car always says the same thing. I never saw the bike. So the question became in the 70s, why can't people see motorcycles, and what can we do about it? Back in the 70s, you had an option on your headlight on your motorcycle. You could turn your headlight on or off anytime you wanted. As a result of the Hurt Report, the option was taken away. Effective January 1, 1981, we got a new federal new motor vehicle safety standard. The second you turn on the ignition on your bike, what happens? Headlight comes on. And check the data from 82, 83, 84, 85, 86. What happened to motorcycles that had mandatory headlights? What happened to wrecks? They went down dramatically. Well, Gordon, that's a good story. No, it's not. I was riding a motorcycle for the Highway Patrol back in 1981. The second the CHP found out about the new law, mandatory headlights, they immediately requested a waiver from the federal government. That law does not apply to the California Highway Patrol. Why not? Officer safety. Officer safety. We have to have the ability to turn our headlight off in case we're being shot at. So let's check the data. How many of our cops have been killed because they could not turn the headlight off? Oh, that's right. None. And how many have we lost from left-hand turn wrecks? Over 100. Black swans versus gray rhinos, folks. One of my goals here today is to get you either to drop me an email or, again, visit lexipol.com/presentations and get a copy of my reading list. Obviously, I'm biased. It's all books on risk. But two great books on my reading list, The Black Swan by Nassim Nicholas Taleb and The Gray Rhino by Michelle Wucker. Take them one at a time. Taleb's great book. 1597, this Englishman goes down to Australia. And he sees this big black bird that looks like a swan. But in his world, where he comes from, England, swans are white. So he asked the Aussie guy, what kind of bird is that? It's a black swan, mate. To the Englishman, that was an unknown unknown. Something he had never even considered, the possibility of a black swan. Fast forward to 21 years ago. 1 month after September 11th, Secretary of Defense Rumsfeld, by the way, he passed away last year. This is in his obituary if you want to read it. Sec Rumsfeld was asked this question in a news conference. Secretary Rumsfeld, what's your greatest fear on this war on terror? Remember his answer? My greatest fear are the black swans, the unknown unknowns, the things we haven't even thought about yet. On the other hand, Michelle Wucker has got this great book called The Gray Rhino. These massive 4,000-pound beasts that are running right at us. We can see them coming, and yet we refuse to get out of the way. Black swans versus gray rhinos. By the end of the day, I want you to know, with respect to our topic today, traffic safety, there are very few, if any, black swans. Most of the tragedies we face as a result of traffic operations are gray rhinos. They're coming right at us. We can see them coming. We know exactly what's going to happen, and we refuse to do anything about it. I will now give you a graphic of my life. For 40 years now, as a lawyer, I have been handling tragedies. That's what lawyers do. My son died in this motorcycle collision. My house was destroyed by this pipeline explosion. I'm being indicted for excessive force. I'm being fired for harassment. I'm being sued for a collision. My husband died in this plane crash. For 40 years as a lawyer, I've been handling tragedies. Please recall my brief reference to graduate school prior to law school at the Institute of Safety and Systems Management. Risk managers do not handle tragedies. Risk managers study tragedies, and we look for cause. Here's the grand plan, folks. In any occupation, in any profession, in any tragedy. Stop the story right there. You heard the introduction. I just don't work for cops or firefighters or public safety. I do a lot of work in high-risk industries. Over the decades, I've done a lot of work in the mining industry, the trucking industry, the construction industry. Currently, I'm doing a lot of work in the aviation industry, oddly enough, the water, wastewater industry, and the nuclear industry. It doesn't make any difference. In any occupation, in any profession, in any tragedy, if you can identify what really caused it, then you can build control measures, policies, procedures, protocols, rules, directives, SOs, GOs, initiatives, call them what you want. But if these control measures are properly designed, kept up to date, and fully implemented, you can prevent future similar tragedies. Ladies and gentlemen, this is my entire life on the screen in front of you. This is 3 years of graduate school, 4 years of law school, $250,000 of tuition, a lot of sleepless nights, and it's all I know. Don't ask me about sports. I don't know jack about sports. Cryptocurrency, I have no clue. Stock market, I'm clueless. This is what I know. As a lawyer, I handle tragedy. As a risk manager, I study tragedy, identify cause, build viable control measures, prevent future similar tragedies from occurring. But in order to build these appropriate control measures to prevent future similar tragedies from occurring, you must first be able to identify the cause of a given tragedy. And if you've been to any of my programs over the last 40 years, you know my pet peeve in life. We don't teach risk management in grade school in this country. We don't teach risk management in high school in this country. And hear this one loud and clear. We hire women and men and put them into the complex, high-risk job of law enforcement operations. Is there any training on risk management at the start of the career? How dare you? How dare you put people in a high-risk job with no training on the discipline of risk management? Well, Gordon, we don't have a formal class, but we talk about it all the time. No, we don't. We don't know jack about risk management. And worse than that, we think we do. Every now and then I'll run into some idiot. Oh, Gordon, my organization is committed to risk management. We are committed to risk management. Are you really? Show me your organizational chart. What? You just told me you're committed to risk management. Where will I find risk management on your police department organizational chart, your sheriff's department organizational chart, your city organizational chart, your county organizational chart? Where will I find it? It's not on there. If it is on there, is it anywhere near the top where it's got some influence? No, it's usually in the basement. Does it have its own box? Oh, no. Finance/risk management, maintenance/risk management, and my favorite, HR/risk management. We don't get it. We don't get it. By the way, you know who's at the highest levels of every government organizational chart? The lawyers. Now walk down this logical road with me. The people whose bias is post-incident correction are at the highest levels of every government organizational chart, and the people whose bias is pre-incident prevention are not on the organizational chart, and we wonder why we got so many problems. When anybody asks me what's the biggest problem America has today, duh, who runs America? We're working on President 46. 26 of the 46, for any lieutenants in here, that's more than half. 26 of the 46, before they got elected, what'd they do? Lawyers. Most of your senators, lawyers. Congress people, lawyers. Governors, lawyers. So the people whose bias is let's wait for something bad to happen so we can fix it are running things. And the people whose bias is let's fix things up front. Nobody listens to them. I put this on my newest series of DVDs, by the way. Anybody out there in my viewing audience who knows a risk manager holds elected office at any level, give me a call and prove it to me, and I'll buy you and your family dinner with a small lawyer asterisk, limited to a party of 4, Southern California area, rest of my choice. Nobody's ever called. We don't get it. We are so stupid, we don't even know how to identify cause of a tragedy. Well, Gordon, identifying cause is easy. Really? For 40 years, I've been boring you with stories about tragedy Titanic. Why do I keep on talking about Titanic? Wherever I go in the world, everybody knows Titanic. Everybody. 110 years ago, 1,500 people ended up dead. By any definition, that's a tragedy. What caused it? You walk up to 100 Americans today and ask them what caused tragedy Titanic, 99 will tell you what. It's iceberg. It was. I saw the movie 14 times. Why do we do that? Why is it when we ask people what caused the tragedy, they instantly default to the event in time that instantly preceded the tragedy? The ship hit the iceberg, the ship went down, therefore the iceberg had to be the cause. So what do? We build control measures to address icebergs, and ships continue to sink. Gordon, are you suggesting the iceberg was not the cause? If you're fading in, fading out on this lecture, please fade in here for a second. In any occupation, in any profession, in any tragedy, rarely is it a single event that generates the tragedy. Usually, it is a cascade of events over a period of time that go uninterrupted. Oh, we have a triggering event. In the world of risk management, we call that triggering event the proximate cause. I'm not being rude here, just very blunt. Any idiot can identify the proximate cause of a tragedy. But if you are building control measures based on proximate cause alone, and so many organizations do, you are dooming yourself, you are dooming your organization, you are dooming your personnel to future tragedies. Real risk managers, and that's where I want you headed. Don't stop here. Real risk managers go back in time and ask this question: were there related causes? Were there contributory causes? Were there associated causes? Were there root causes? Were there conditions? Were there cultures? Were there problems lying in wait that everybody knew about and nobody did a darn thing about it? You want to leave with something today? You want to leave with something? I just listened to that panel discussion here. So what are we going to do? Your daily and ongoing responsibility as a line employee, as a supervisor, as a manager, as an executive, and you're all here or you're all online today, your daily and ongoing responsibility is to take a look at your span of control, your sphere of influence every day and ask this question: do I have problems lying in wait? If you're a cop and you're grossly out of shape, is that a problem lying in wait? If you're a dispatcher, suffer from narcolepsy and you're hiding from your department, is that a problem lying in wait? If you're a jail deputy packing a racial bias, is that a problem lying in wait? If you're a detective and you don't know the Fourth Amendment of the United States Constitution inside and out, is that a problem lying in wait? If you're a supervisor who wants to be everybody's best friend, is that a problem lying in wait? If you're a supervisor who doesn't understand the policies and procedures of your chief, of your sheriff, how on earth are you going to fulfill your obligation as a supervisor, primary mission, enforcement of organizational policy, if you don't even know what the policies are? If you're a supervisor who lacks the guts to have that courageous conversation with one of your employees and change their direction before they end up dead, fired, or indicted, is that a problem lying in wait? Let's move up a rank, mid-management. Do we have problems lying in wait in our fleet? Do we have problems lying in wait in our policy manual? Do we have problems lying in wait amongst our personnel? Do we have problems lying in wait in our training? And when you become the executive, the buck stops with you. Do we have problems lying in wait that everybody knows about and nobody's doing a darn thing about it? And I am fed up, folks. We've got these problems lying in wait and everybody knows and nobody does a darn thing about it. And why? On my recommended reading list is a great book by Margaret Heffernan, Genius. Chapter 1, Why Don't People Report Problems Lying in Wait? In too many organizations, she says this very clearly. If you raise your hand and say, we have a problem, in the eyes of many people in the organization, what? You're the problem. So don't raise your hand. And this is particularly acute in government operations, and you are government operations. Because if you raise your hand and take that risk, you get paid X. If you don't do jack and ignore the risk, how much do you get paid? X. So why raise your hand? And as a result, in too many organizations, mediocrity has replaced accountability, and the whole house of cards is falling apart, ladies and gentlemen. We've got these problems lying in wait. Everybody knows, and nobody's doing a darn thing about it. Allow me to digress. I came on in 73. Very few women cops in 1973. By 83, more and more women coming into law enforcement, and more issues regarding sexual harassment. So I put together a program in 85 called Sexual Harassment Techniques for Elimination. And between 85 and 95, I taught the class one way. And in 95, I had a brilliant idea. I've got a new way to teach my sex harassment class. And I tried it for about 2 months. And I got in so much trouble for doing it the new way, I had to stop doing it the new way. So I now do it the old way. So I don't do it the new way anymore because I got in so much trouble for doing it the new way. But I'll tell you what I did for 2 months that I don't do anymore. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Gordon Graham here. I got you for 4 hours on sex harassment techniques for elimination. Let's get started. And I would reach into my tax-deductible briefcase and pull out a stack of 3x5 cards, and I would hand them out at random. Randomly, you don't get one, and you don't get one, and you don't get one, but you do, and you do, but you don't, and you do. You can hear people talking. This is not random. He's just giving it to the women. And I get back up front. Ladies, you all have a 3x5 card. Would you please take a look around the room right now and write down the name of the biggest sexual predator in this room right now? And by the way, if you're going to do this, you get your cash up front because they are not going to pay you after the fact. I go around and pick up the cards. In every stack of cards that I see one name repeated over and over again, I'd hold him up to the chief. Chief, what? Good news, sir. It's not your name. I knew that. I did. Sir, I'll sell you these cards for $50,000. And you can see him thinking, well, we could take it out of asset seizure and forfeiture money. And then I'd tear the cards up, throw them away. My guess is, Chief, you don't need to buy them. My guess is what? You already know. When was the last time a sex harassment lawsuit was filed against any organization where people sat around after the fact and said, who would have ever thunk? Most of the time, people were saying what? It's been going on for years. Everybody knew, and nobody did a darn thing about it. Gordon, what's this got to do with our class today? Traffic safety issues. I got a 4-hour block on vehicle operations and cop shops. Everybody gets a 3x5 card at the start of the day. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Gordon Graham here. In front of you, you got a set of handouts and a 3x5 card. Would you take a look around the room right now and write down the name of the next cop in this room right now who's going to stack up a patrol car? Does every cop in every department in America know who the next cop is who's going to wreck a sled? Do the dispatchers know who's going to stack up the car? Do the mechanics know who's going to stack up the car? Pads and rotors every 300 miles. I saw that one coming. Everybody knows, and nobody's doing a darn thing about it. We're not having that courageous conversation, folks. We've got these problems lying in wait. Everybody knows, and nobody's doing a darn thing about it. Okay, Gordon, what do we need to know? What's the takeaway today? When you get to page 12 of the handout material, I want to cover what everybody else has already said, but I want to give you just a little more detail. Item number 1, problem lying in wait. Fatigue. I wonder how many tragedies in American law enforcement are assigned a proximate cause of X when the real problem lying in wait is a grossly fatigued employee. These are not my words, folks. I read what smart people write. If you're not getting 7 hours of uninterrupted sleep every night, you are suffering from fatigue. And every now and then I got somebody fact-checking me all the time. Mr. Graham, I'm on the fatigue website, sir. It doesn't say 7 hours, sir. It says 6 to 8 hours. How did you come up with 7? Well, Lieutenant. I know I did that quickly. I went to Catholic school. Are you getting 7 hours of uninterrupted sleep every night? Are your personnel getting 7 hours of uninterrupted sleep every night? If you're a single mom or a single dad, are you tired all the time? If you got a special needs kid, are you tired all the time? If you're taking care of an elderly parent with Alzheimer's or dementia, are you tired all the time? Long commutes, secondary employment, going to school. We're a tired bunch, folks. We are a tired bunch, and we're not even talking about it. We are not even talking about fatigue. It's the dirty little secret in our business. It's a huge problem lying in wait. The gurus on fatigue in the world are Dr. and Dr. James. Lois and Steve James, a wife-husband team, both PhDs out of Washington State University, Spokane. They are the gurus on fatigue. If you want more information, you look up their work and you will be amazed what they're doing with respect to fatigue, human performance, and how it impacts law enforcement. There's a lot of good information there, but I'll tell you bottom line, does fatigue impact decision-making, critical thinking skills, judgment, coordination and balance, vision, lifespan? The answer to all of the above is yes. That's a huge problem lying in wait. Item number 2, distractions. Distractions. I've already heard this today. In-car computers, are they a distraction? Cell phones, are they a distraction? Don't get distracted while you're driving. That's a high-risk task. So, CHP did an audit in 1975. One of our 10 offices that had motorcycle cops was grossly overrepresented in motorcycle collisions. So they went out to study it. It was West Los Angeles office. When they drilled down on the data, 1 2-mile beat of West Los Angeles was 5 times overrepresented in motorcycle collisions involving CHP officers. Have you figured it out yet? Sunset Boulevard. Gordon, you don't need to say anymore. It was all the beautiful women on Sunset Boulevard. Your motorcycle cops were distracted. Not even close. It was the plate glass windows on both sides of Sunset Boulevard where the motor cops could watch themselves going down the road. Oh, God, do I look good or what? Don't get distracted. Don't get distracted. Distractions. Complacency. How many times have you heard this today? Complacency kills. I don't care how many times you've directed traffic on the interstate. The next time you direct traffic on the interstate, is it as risky as the first time you directed traffic on the interstate? Night 1 on the job, I directed traffic on Interstate 10. I'm brand new. I'm an idiot. I have no clue. My training officer says we've got to call up on the Santa Monica Freeway, which, by the way, is an elevated freeway in downtown Los Angeles. I see all this smoke up ahead. He stops about a quarter mile away. He opens up the trunk, gives me a box of flares, and says, lay a flare pattern. For the first time in my life, I'm standing on a freeway at nighttime with big rigs going by. And for those of you who have never worked an elevated freeway, when the big rigs go by, what happens? Holy moly. I was throwing those flares out at random. I was scared to death. Night 2, I was laying flares. I was scared to death. Night 3, I was laying flares. I was scared to death. Year 20, I was laying flares. I don't know when it happened, but sometime between night 3 and year 20, did laying flares become routine? Yes or no? The level of risk has not changed, folks. Acclimation to risk has changed. Don't get complacent. I don't care how many times you've done a high-risk task. The level of risk never changes. Don't get complacent. Item next, hubris. Don't get cocky. I love confident cops. Cocky cops, are they a problem lying in wait? When people start thinking, I've been doing this job so long, nothing bad can happen to me. Is something bad going to happen? Don't get cocky. Don't get cocky. Item next, risk homeostasis. I love this topic. In my long programs, I spend about an hour talking about risk homeostasis. Gordon, what is it? That's where we do things with the goal of making people more safe. And in fact, we make them less safe. Well, Gordon, that doesn't make sense. That's why it's a phenomenon. Talk to old firefighters. Old firefighters will tell you this. Gordon, your ears will tell you when to get out of a burning building. You could hear something, Chief? No, they got so hot you had to leave. Well, we don't want firefighters getting their ears burned, so we gave them hoods. So what do they do now? Stay in longer, go in deeper, buildings collapse on firefighters? Have hoods made firefighters more safe or less safe? CHP bought BMW motorcycles in the mid-90s. It was the only bike you could get with ABS at the time. You know what? With better brakes, wrecks will go down. Wrecks went up. Once my cops figured out they had better brakes, they started doing what? Driving faster. I was sitting at a top management meeting at the time when that data came in. Well, Gordon, what's your recommendation? Take the brakes off the motorcycles and watch how safe they get. Oh, you're difficult. Risk homeostasis, spike strips, TDDs. I'm working with several people right now on a recommendation that we either do away with these things or severely limit their use. The last number I heard over 10 years, 45 cops died on these TDD deployments. What's the risk and what's the benefit? Now, if you've read any of my stuff, I am opposed to using language shall and shall not, because once you take away discretion from the endpoint user, does that cause some problems occasionally? But I am very close to saying shall not unless there be some very restricted circumstances where you're able to do this. But that's a problem lying in wait. Speeding. What's the oldest joke in America? Why do cops drive fast? Because they can. Because they can. Slow down. Put away the meth. Get into some heroin. Slow down. I still do ride-alongs with cops. I'm 16 years retired. And when I heard that data earlier today, that cops are living 6.2 years, whoa, I win. I got 16 years. I'm now in the state's money at this point. Slow down. I do ride-alongs with cops. And I'm riding around with a young man not too long ago. And I'm sitting in the right front seat. He's on patrol, staring straight ahead. The light's red. The light turns green. Next red light. Light goes green. About 4 lights into it, I said, "What are you doing?" "I'm on patrol." You ain't patrolling. You're racing from stoplight to stoplight. Slow down, son. Roll down your window. You can hear crime. And not too long after that, I had my window down, and there was this hellacious scream. He heard it. First thing he does is he looks at his MDT. I said, "Did you hear that?" "I got nothing." Let me tell you the way it works. She screams, somebody calls 911, then they send it to you. If we go over there now, we might be able to figure something out. You can smell crime. When I say that to people, oh, no way. Has anybody in here made an arrest because they smelled the arrest? Yep, hands are going up. Folks. Speeding, right side approaches. If you don't get anything else out of my time with you today, right side approaches are much safer than left side approaches. Right side approaches give you cover, concealment, and no passing traffic. Left side approaches, zero cover, zero concealment, and passing traffic. So I go through the TV every now and then, and you see these cop shows. Whenever I see a dash cam where a cop's walking up on the left-hand side, do I watch it? Oh, yeah, something's going to happen here. And I'm watching one of these things. Some cop walks up on the left-hand side, like you saw earlier today, walks up the left-hand side. He's got his butt hanging out in traffic, and a van swerves off the road, sideswipes him, and knocks him down. And I'm watching this thing on the dash cam, and you see him pull himself up on the car, looks at that van, he runs back to his patrol car, jumps in the patrol car, chases this guy down, gets him stopped, and does what? Walks up on the left-hand side. Were your parents cousins? You just got hit there. What are you thinking? So about 20 years ago, I got invited in to talk to the IATLS group, the state academy directors from around the country. How many of you still teach your cops to walk up on the left-hand side? And a whole bunch of hands go up. So I spent 10 minutes talking about the value of right side approaches versus left side approaches. And I laid it all out. And I could see people out there, 5 years later, I addressed the same group. How many of you still teach your people to make left side approaches? How many hands go up? All of them. What does it take? Right side approaches are much safer than left side approaches. Much safer. I teach this class called the Kavanaugh DUI School, and I've been doing this for 30-something years. And Bill Kavanaugh is a good man. He's got a good DUI school. I got an email from a cop within the last couple of years. Dear Mr. Graham, I am writing this email to you because I can. Wow, that's an interesting start. 20 years ago, I was in the Kavanaugh DUI school, and you talked about right side approaches. I never gave it any thought, but I started making right side approaches because what you said made sense. I am in my last year, sir. Last week, I made a right side approach. I was 20 feet off the roadway, but I always walk up on the right-hand side. While I was dealing with the driver, a car came off the road, wiped out the left-hand side of my patrol car, wiped out the left-hand side of the car I had stopped. Had I been there, I would be dead. Thank you. Does that make it all worthwhile? Yes or no? It absolutely does, folks. Right side approaches are much safer than left side approaches. Roadway incursions. What you heard today about respondersafety.com, that is just chock full with information. And what they said, every day, cops, firefighters, paramedics are being struck by passing traffic. This is not a black swan, folks. This is a gray rhino. There are control measures you can put into place to prevent this from happening, and there's a ton of information on respondersafety.com. And finally, seat belts. Seat belts. I did a lot of work for United Parcel Service. And at the time, Jack Casey was the president of United Parcel Service. And he and I went out to dinner one night in his car. We're driving along. There's a UPS truck in front of us. And Jack Casey says to me, Gordon, I will bet you $100,000 that driver's got a seatbelt on. I was unwilling to take the bet. But we pulled up alongside the UPS truck and looked in the open door. Did the driver have a seatbelt on? If you're a UPS driver and you get caught not wearing a seatbelt, you're done. You are done. Well, Gordon, that's rather draconian. No, rather draconian is almost half the cops who die in traffic collisions are not wearing a seatbelt. Well, Gordon, I'm exempt from the law. You're not exempt from the laws of physics, my friend. You are not exempt from the laws of physics. Wear that seatbelt. Wear that seatbelt, please. They don't even call it a seatbelt anymore. Everything's changed. Used to call them seatbelts. Now they got a fancy name for them. They're called a restraint. What the hell do they call them? They call them a restraint system. It's properly designed. It's up to date. All you got to do is wear the darn thing. And why don't cops wear seatbelts? Arrogance, ignorance, and complacency. Arrogance. I ain't wearing it. Ignorance. Complacency. Haven't had a problem yet. Sooner or later, all the holes in the Swiss cheese are going to line up. I've actually had cops tell me this. If I ever need it, I'll put it on. By the time you recognize the need, is the event over. I am alive times 3. 3 times. Seatbelt saved my life. Get that seatbelt and wear it. And if you're a supervisor, set the proper example and enforce the policy. Now, I'm running out of time, but there's 3 basic rules of risk management that I cover in every program. Basic risk management rule number 1, the errors you're going to make can be predicted from the errors already made. What does this mean? There's no new ways to get in trouble. Planes have figured out no new ways to crash. Restaurants have figured out no new ways to poison people. Mines have figured out no new ways to collapse. Ships have figured out no new ways to sink. Firefighters have figured out no new ways to die. Cops, have we figured out any new ways to get in trouble? Oh, no. There's variations on a theme, but there's no new ways, folks. There are no black swans here. These are gray rhinos. They've happened before. They'll happen again. Basic risk management rule number 2, there's always a better way to stay out of trouble. Those thoughts by the chief earlier today on continuous improvement. Anything you can quantify, anything you can measure, we've got to establish a metric for. We got to get better and better and better at what we do. Our public deserves better than minimum standards. Our personnel deserve better than minimum standards. Our profession deserves better than minimum standards. We got to continually improve our operations. And basic risk management rule number 3, predictable is preventable. Identifiable risks are manageable risks, folks, and you're the ones who can go back and do something about this. Please, if nothing changes on your department in the next 30 days, everybody who's been here today has wasted their time with you. you can do something to better protect our personnel and in terms better protect our great public, because that's what everybody in public safety is all about, is preservation of life for our great public and our personnel, and you're the people who can do it. So my time is up, ladies and gentlemen. To all of you, good luck, good health, goodbye. God bless you. God bless America. And please keep your soldiers, sailors, Marines, airmen, and Coast Guard personnel in your prayers tonight, because without them, right now, would this nation be in a much bigger mess? And let's go back and take traffic safety seriously.
My background, volunteer firefighter, 1982, EMT, hazmat team member. Sounds like I can't hold a job, right, based on all this stuff, but I can. I worked for the Turnpike for the past 23 years and love what I do. How many times are we doing routine things on our roadway like this, traffic stops? And are we doing everything safe or everything right, everything correctly? Is there a better way to do things there? How about here? How many police officers are handling routine incidents like this? Disabled vehicle. Active emergency responders or law enforcement in the room. How many of you have an escape route when you step out of your vehicle? If you don't listen to one thing I say, where's my escape route? Where can I go? What's on the other side of that wall? Do I know what's on the other side of that wall? Is there a steep drop? So we're going to hear a little bit more about, they're going to be a video that's going to narrate what happened at the scene here.
The SUV zoomed by as Gonzalez jumped out of the way and over the barrier. The alleged drunk driver was arrested and charged with driving while intoxicated and aggravated assault with a deadly weapon on a police officer. The people from the stranded car were not hurt. Gonzalez is out of the hospital but suffered a serious back injury. Precinct 5 says he may need surgery. In Houston, David Gonzalez, KHRU 11 News.
So how many times do we have incidents like this that occur on the roadway? How many times do we have officers that are hurt that we don't forget about, but we honor the people that have been struck and killed, but do we pay attention to the people that are suffering? How many people have back problems like me? Does that ever go away? No. And so the aches and pains you have during the day. I mean, you see me and you see this physically fit guy, but not everybody's like an athlete like me. We're out here. How about here? When we have an incident like this, how many times are we working with our back to traffic and not paying attention because it's a routine incident? How many people have passed an emergency scene where all the firefighters are held together, all the EMTs are held together, all the police officers are held together, and nobody's talking to the tow operator, right? Forget him. We got to do better. We got to, traffic is our enemy. We have to make sure we're protecting ourselves. This is a struck by crash, though, that occurs here. And again, these crashes are difficult to watch, but what can we do differently? How can we change the way we do things? Can we put a vehicle between us and the enemy? Enemy is traffic. Are people paying attention when they're driving down the roadway? Are they looking at the windshield? We could do everything with lights and do everything we do, but if they're not looking at the windshield, is that a problem? So 3 points I want you to remember today. Be the voice. What do I mean by be the voice? Well, how many times do we complain about slow down, move over, or safety, or an issue, but we don't say anything about it because somebody else is going to be the voice and be the champion for that cause, right? That ever happen? We have to be the voice. We have to rattle the cages. We have to make sure that we get out there and spread that message, because nobody's going to do it for us. Why do you expect people to do things for you? Get out there and do it yourself. Be that voice. How many of us have heard this? We've always done it this way, so we're not going to change, right? Or it's brother, We tried that once and it didn't work. We tried it once 20 years ago and it didn't work, so we're not going to try it again. Anybody have that happen at your agency? Yeah, we hear it. Be an advocate for training. There is free training. I'm going to talk about training here, but there's free training. Do something beyond the training. How many of you have taken a 4-hour TIM course or 6-hour TIM course? How many have done anything beyond that 4-hour TIM course and looked at stuff? Yeah, we have to do, just because I take a TIM class, is that going to protect me? If we don't incorporate some of the things we learn, we have to make sure we do that, go further. Pre-plan for roadway incidents. Do we ever plan for roadway incidents? We plan for everything else. We have an idea of what we're doing, but do we plan, all right, do we know our most frequent crash locations when we go out there? And do we figure, okay, this is where we're going to set out traffic control? Raise awareness. Again, be the voice. Meet, listen, and train with your fellow responders. Yes, you are the smartest person in the room. Yes, you're the smartest person at the incident, but listen to some of the other people because they may have come up with an idea that's going to impress you. And I will steal your best ideas. I steal stuff from Scott. I steal stuff from Dave. I don't care. I'm not, at the end of the day, I don't steal items. I steal ideas. Yeah. I just wanted to clarify that. Good enough is the enemy of your best. Anybody hear that statement? Anybody turn in anything and say, is this good enough? Yeah. 6th grade, Milton Hershey School. I went to Milton Hershey School. My dad died when I was 2. I went to school at 4. And I was in Mr. Blatchley's class. And this is a photo of us from 6th grade. And I turned in a paper to him and I said, Mr. Blatchley, is this good enough? And he said, good enough is the enemy of your best. And that has followed me around forever and ever, because now it's like, I do something and it's like, is this good enough or is this my best? If it's not my best, guess what? Keep working on it. That handsome man, as you can see, is this handsome man. I said, there, I figure I was 10 or 11 years old. So if you do the math, you figure I'm 23, 24 now, right? I feel like I'm 78 years old. I act like I'm a 3-year-old. Somewhere in between, I try to narrow it down here. So again, communicate, coordinate, cooperate. We've all heard that, right? Do we communicate, coordinate, cooperate, or do we think our idea is the best idea, we're not going to listen to anybody else? Do your best to train for roadway incidents. Again, talk things out. Talk about driver training, blocking, setting up a team, a traffic incident management, and we'll talk about that all. Do your best to plan for roadway incidents because we work together. And we're going to show you some training that we do. What's your most frequent crash locations? Who's responsible for what at an incident? Where's your traffic control placed in your vehicle? If you have a cruiser, are my items in the trunk that I'm getting out to provide traffic control? Who here has ever said as a law enforcement officer or as a responder, I'm not going to put out traffic control because I'm only going to be on scene for 5 minutes? Anybody? Have you ever been on scene for 5 minutes? 5 turns to 10, 10 turns to 20. Finally, we're at a half hour, and it's like, man, I really wish I would have put out traffic control. Yeah, just do it. Proper PPE each and every time. High-vis vest, whatever you have out there to make yourself visible. No shortcuts to safety. How many of us take shortcuts to safety? Okay, if my wife asks me to do something in the house, what am I going to do? I'm going to go out there and I'm going to, if I have to fix something that's high, I'm going to try to do it with a little step stool, right? I know I need a ladder, but I'm going to try it the easy way first, so I don't have to do that. Do we ever do that? We have to stop thinking that, we can take safety shortcuts and still not be injured or killed. Proper PPE. If you're free on the street, they mentioned this earlier, the vest is on your chest. Proper early warning. Do we put out any kind of early warning using flares, cones, signs, whatever we have? Digital alerts. This is digital alert. This is what I have in my car for the Turnpike Commission. The agency that you talked about in Pennsylvania that we went from 30 vehicles struck to 0 is my agency at the Pennsylvania Turnpike. And we love these. This is a device called a Haas alert, a digital alert. There's other devices out there. But yeah, I turn my lights on in my vehicle, and within 30 seconds, there's a message put up there saying, emergency vehicle ahead, slow down, move over. Is that a good thing? Again, it's one tool. It's not the end all be all, but it's one tool in the toolbox that we need to have. Proper blocking and positioning. Do we ever look at the way we block or think about that after we clear the scene? Work together. Everybody that goes to call, how many times do we leave other responders on the side of the roadway? 5 times out of 65 responders killed last year, 5 times we sent the safety away that was protecting us. Within 2 minutes, a responder was killed. Is that good enough? No, we got to do better than that. Some stats here. You see, back in 2020, between 2019 and 2020, we had 2,500 more fatalities. 1 year later, 2021, we're up to 42,000, close to 43,000 fatalities. Why, when we have less traffic on the roadway, are we having more fatals, more people being struck, more officers, more responders being struck? So if there's 6.7 million police reported crashes per year and 8 emergency responders go to each of those crashes, there are 54 million targets on the roadway. Do you feel like you're a target on the roadway when you're out there? This is just some of the crashes that occurred in this country. So, typical year, 10 law enforcement officers struck and killed, 4 fire and rescue, 20 towers, several transportation professionals. This is from the TIM class. This is from the Federal Highways TIM course. We're not in typical years anymore. At least 2 emergency responders are struck every day in the United States, whether it's a property damage crash, an injury crash, or fatality crash. At least 2. How do I know there's 2? Because we keep track of these and we try to track them. And I'm just getting information from people that send me text messages, phone calls, whatever, let me know about these incidents. We have a good network of people, but I'm sure we're missing many crashes. Responders struck and injured every 2 days in the United States. Responders struck and killed every 6 days in the United States. Okay, think about that. Responders struck and killed every 6 days. So one of the things we're working on is a new struck by database, report struck by. So if you go to report struck by, it's going to give you the information. It's part of what I do for the Emergency Responder Safety Institute, respondersafety.com, because we're trying to use data. We're trying to track the information. So I encourage everybody, if you have a struck by, whether it's a property damage crash, whatever, to go there and put your information into this database. Tomorrow we're having a kickoff meeting on how we pull this data out and how we use this data. So we'll be working on that as well. Voluntary reporting, tracking, and analysis of the struck by incidents. This is the website. And again, when you go there, it's going to take you to the responder safety site, but it's going to ask you some questions. It's going to ask you the incident time, the type, the location, roadway incidents, information, responding agencies, duration. And again, this type of information, type of vehicle. Well, again, we're trying to get as much information, like Nick mentioned, we're trying to get information so that we can paint a clear picture. Why? Data allows you to get more funding, right? At times. Do we want to be able to find information out and be able to share this information out? Yeah, we want to. I have people say to me every day, how many people have been struck in this country so far this year? I don't know. I know that there's 29 that are struck and killed. I don't know how many people are struck and killed. Last year, when we had 65 responders struck and killed, I got asked by somebody, and at the time we had 47. And the person that asked me said, 47, that's not bad. Really? So after I gave him a hug and we became good friends, I said to him, that's not 47 individuals. That's 47 families. It's 47 communities. It's 47 workplaces. I said, there's hundreds and thousands of people that are affected when this happens. So I never want you to say 47 isn't bad again. So the vehicle on the bottom there was one that occurred in Pennsylvania, Interstate 95. Female tow operator saw the vehicle coming towards her, jumped in the driver's door and out the passenger door, just missed being killed. 1 year later, almost the exact same spot as where this occurred, same towing company lost a customer that was hit in a struck by crash that occurred on the roadway. So breaking out some numbers here, Nick gave some numbers, but 2019, there were 18 law enforcement officers that were struck and killed. So we track it a little bit differently. We sort of lump in the officer in the vehicle and the vehicle assault crashes as well. 11 vehicles struck while conducting traffic stops. 5 officers killed working with motor vehicle crash scenes, and then 2 officers were killed helping with disabled vehicles. That was out of the 44 responders that we had killed that year. 18 law enforcement, 14 tow, 3 road service technicians, and 9 fire EMS. 1 year later, 17 law enforcement officers. Again, 13 officers struck conducting traffic stops or involved in some other type of law enforcement activity. 3 were struck and killed while motor vehicle crash scenes, and 1 officer was struck and killed doing physical training. He was out conducting training. I believe that was down in Georgia. Again, out of 46 number. 1 year later, we're up to 65 emergency responders, 30 police officers struck and killed. Is that good enough? Does this show you that what we're doing isn't working and we need to do something differently or something better? Yeah. So far this year, 29 emergency responders struck and killed, 11 law enforcement officers. This is a map I make up showing you where all the responders have been struck and killed in the country. Again, this is accident vehicle assaults. And this is just the past maybe 7, 8 years. Again, so if you click on those, that information, show you here. When you click on that, it brings up information about that officer or about that person, gives you a photo of them, tells you what happened. And again, we want to show you that these happen everywhere. There's no state agency or whatever that these don't happen. So if you have somebody that had been struck and not included in this database, just let me know and we will update this. This is something I do in my spare time. Again, so this is on respondersafety.com as well. So how many of us are D drivers other than me? How many of you are D drivers? How many of us? We have 600 people in this room. All of you are liars because you're not reading. Who here, anybody drive drunk here today? Drugged, legal. How about, it doesn't have to be illegal drugs. How about cold and flu medicine that makes you a little bit loopy? Drowsy? Anybody here drive drowsy? Yeah, every day. How about distracted? Who here talks on the phone in the car and drives? Whether it's hands-free or not. Have you ever gotten from point A to point B and thought, how did I get there? Yeah. Who here eats food in the car and drives? Look at me. I don't miss a meal. I mean, I got to maintain this figure. Deliberate. Anybody out there driving deliberately bad? Yeah. He cut me off, so I'm going to cut him off, right? Dangerous to just plain dumb. Federal Highway took out just plain dumb. I put just plain dumb in because dumb's dumb. I saw a girl in Pittsburgh a couple years ago eating a bowl of spaghetti. Look at me. I'm a fat guy. I like spaghetti. I want to know where she got the spaghetti. She needs to eat it while she's driving down the roadway. But because I don't want to be that D driver, I'm not doing that. How about here? Who here is the disgruntled driver? The angry, pissed off driver. Yep. Developing a younger driver. I'm getting to be the distinguished older driver. I don't like people riding my bumper. I'll pull over and let people pass me. Driverless cars. Tesla's a level 2 automated vehicle. We're now testing level 3 and level 4 automated vehicles. How do we know that they're not going to run over a responder? We're working on an AV incident response plan in Pennsylvania. We'll share that data out with anybody as well to do that. So it's a survey done by the National Safety Council and distracteddriving.org and the Emergency Responder Safety Institute. 4 out of 5 people use their hands, use their phone when they're driving. So as a demonstration, I get a lot from people saying, I drive hands-free and they do this. Hey, dum-dum, I don't want to call you stupid, but that's your hand. It's not hands-free. Just because you're on a speakerphone, okay? All parents are driving with their kids present in the vehicle. And distracteddriving.org has great lesson plans to train in schools from preschool on up to teach your kids how to talk to their parents about distracted driving. It's free. You're always looking for free ideas? Go to ndd.org. 3 types of distraction: manual distraction, cognizant, and visual distractions. So, COVID has impacted people driving. Have people gotten better since COVID driving? No. Have they gotten worse? Why? We have less traffic on the roadway, but everybody's driving faster. Everybody's driving more distracted. How many people have become Zoom zombies? You get on, you're driving, you're an important, busy person. I'm driving on the roadway and I'm trying to be on the meeting that they want me to be on, but I'm trying to get to where I need to go. Does that ever happen? Are we driving distracted? We underestimate the risk of emergency responders out on the highway. How many people don't move over for that responder out there because, well, they have 2 or 3 feet. Well, unless you stood out on the highway when traffic's passing you at 70, 80 miles per hour, you don't understand, right? What happens if that police officer, what happens if that emergency responder steps on a rock, a pebble out there on the roadway? Now he falls into traffic. Who here has changed a flat tire? Have you ever changed a flat tire where you haven't dropped the lug nut and it rolled behind you? So what if you're changing a flat tire on the side of the roadway? What am I going to do? I'm going to retry your back for that tire or for that lug nut. Hopefully not the tire. But, again, we just react. So the National Unified Goal, everybody probably knows the National Unified Goal of Traffic Incident Management, responder safety. Who's your responders? Fire, EMS, towing, doesn't matter who you are. Safe, quick clearance, getting the stuff on the roadway, off the roadway as quickly as possible after the fire's put out, after the patients are treated, after the investigation done. Prompt, reliable, interoperable communications. that's great that we can talk to each other on the radio, but how many times do we not talk to people that are at the incident scene? We don't talk to the other responders because all of a sudden we become shy. Anybody here shy? Like me? Yeah, we got to talk to people. Training outreach. So what do we do? We're doing training, doing public outreach. We're increasing situational awareness. We're meeting fellow responders, and we develop joint SOPs and SOGs. Sometimes we hear SOPs and SOGs, and that's a dirty word, right? We don't want to work together. We don't want to put anything down on paper that could come back and bite us in the butt, right? But we do that. So training. These are the numbers for Federal Highway. The last May 23rd was the last one I got. So again, we go out and do training. Pennsylvania, we're up to 32,500 emergency responders trained. That's great until you look at that we have 54,500 emergency responders. We've trained 60% of our team. Is it good that you only train 60%? These are the numbers. And sure, I fudged. We were at 59.6. I'm rounding up. But yeah, we conduct training all the time. I do a number of trainings that we do online. We do it virtual. So we try to get that. But look at this total. Law enforcement. 37.4% of law enforcement officers have received TIM training through the Federal Sharp 2 TIM training program. Let me reiterate that. 37.4% have received TIM training. Why? Why isn't that 100%? What are the two most frequent responders struck and hit on the side of the roadway? Police officers and towers. Which disciplines have the least amount of training? Towers and police officers. And again, police officers have training. You have training on a lot of other things. But, do we get complacent on the side of the roadway? So I volunteer for the Cumberland Valley Volunteer Firemen's Association, which is the parent company of Emergency Responder Safety Institute and ResponderSafety.com. Who here has heard of ResponderSafety.com? Every hand should be up. If you have not heard of them, go to the website. Why? Free training. How much is that free training? Free. I'll give you a coupon to get the free training absolutely free as well. 47 training modules we currently have out there. Some of them are law enforcement specific. Many of them are responder specific, but you can take them online. How expensive are they? Free. Did I say be the voice? So don't just sit there. I mean, I know I'm all this. Don't stare at me. I'll stare at you. It gets very uncomfortable, right? We gotta share. We gotta be out there. So free online training, ResponderSafety.com. We have 10 modules that get you the TIM certificate. So how many people, if you're taking the TIM course, even if you want a refresher, go to ResponderSafety.com. Take these 10 modules. Take the knowledge check. See, I'm a very good student. I completed all these. Again, free online training. These are some of the courses that we have out there. I completed the connected vehicle, but I still have to pass the test. So I'm go through there, and every time I take it, I'm a little distracted. So distracted students aren't a good thing either, right? I just got to sit down and listen. How many people do training in classrooms? How many people use tabletop exercises? Do we do that? People love to play with Matchbox cars. My budget, I have Matchbox money. I don't have Hot Wheel money. We don't do that. But I have 200 Matchbox cars, and we play Matchbox cars, and we talk about who positions where. How about this? We're developing a new training module or a new virtual reality training that we could give you the windshield perspective. Then we can have you get out of the car and walk up to the vehicles. And what do I see when I walk up there? How does that differ from what I see when I'm in my vehicle? Now we could create snow, we could create time of day, we could create shadows, we could create rain. Is that a helpful tool? So again, we'll have that training out hopefully by October. If anybody wants to see a demo of this, let me know and we'll be glad to share a demo with you. Again, be seen at the scene. Emergency vehicle lighting. Are our lights too bright in some of our vehicles? My lights in my turnpike vehicle are too bright. I cannot drive with them on, otherwise I'd blind myself. Okay, overnight last night, a fire department pulling into an incident scene in Pennsylvania, struck and killed a pedestrian, a patient that was on the side of the roadway. Now, I'm not sure all the circumstances, but are lighting possibly a factor there? No? Yeah, so we got to look at this better. Who can tell me what's going on here? Can you see what's going on yet? And again, why don't I see my big red fire truck? How many of you have taken the time to put somebody in high-vis gear, put your emergency lights on your vehicle, walk back, and see if you can see that person on the side of the roadway or beside the vehicle? Have you done that? If you don't, do that. How about here? Do we blind people coming through our scenes? How about that? Is that going to make you see spots? We blind people all the time going into our work centers. Routine incidents on the side of the roadway. Have we ever looked at turning those lights down? Can we reduce the visibility? Again, can you tell what's going on until you get up to the scene? So one of the things that we've done at the Emergency Responder Safety Institute is we did a lighting study and looked at the amount of lights and how it impacts motorists and what they perceive with that vehicle. So that lighting study is available on respondersafety.com. Based on the study, the higher intensity lights present more glare, but aren't necessarily better. Have you ever seen a responder vehicle that has every light in the world on it? And it's like, oh, that's great, I'm visible. Well, no, you're not. You just blinded the people that you're trying to do. Low intensity lights provide basically the essential same level of visibility. Vehicles using stationary or nighttime blocking should dim your lights out. Perceived level of visibility. What colors are we using in our lights? And again, everybody thinks that red and blue is going to make it safer at the scene, right? Because police have red and blue, right? Who's the number one responder the last couple of years are getting hit? Police officers with blue lights, with red lights, whatever, where people are not paying attention to them. How about here? Advanced warning. How many people put out advanced warning at an emergency scene? Okay, cones, flares, whatever you're using. What are we using? It's a product here that I tested. Sequence is up. Does a great job. You'll get one of these in your swag bag if you stick around to the end of the day. These kind of lights, a beacon for Lifeline. Are they effective? They're a nice heavy light. Or they're raised up off the ground. Is that good? Yeah. Who do you see better? Two guys in high vis, two guys out high vis. We make excuses all the time as to why we don't want to wear high vis. How about these? Again, Pennsylvania State Police Trooper, that was a responder safety video shoot that we did. And for that responder safety video shoot that we did, they said, I told the colonel for the state police, I said, I need these guys to wear vests, otherwise I can't use them because it's a safety video. And both of them told me that they had over 20 years experience in the police department. That's the first time they ever wore their vest for longer than 20 minutes. It was embarrassing. They were that wrinkled, or they were that creased that it's like, I got to roll you around in dirt and make it look like you've been here before. Set the example. Which one's the fire chief? Yep. You got the trooper flashing gang signs. You got the guy out of the 80s movie. This is a bad Pennsylvania version of the Village People, right? Got the firefighter. Again, I'd like to say we staged the scene, but we didn't. Again, we got to be out there. If an old Order the Amish guy could wear a high-vis vest, you could do it too, right? If the person that's out there picking up carts at the grocery store could wear a high-vis vest, you could do it too. We have vests, we have lights like this, and Nick's going to show you these later on, but how many people have seen a light like this? Personal light that goes on you. Again, gives you some other increased visibility. We need to make sure we're visible. How many of us have looked at after action reviews, and how many of us have looked at our incidents beyond when we have them? Are we afraid to look at our incidents? A lot of times people say, I don't want to do an after action review because we're going to get hung. You're looking to hang somebody. It's a witch hunt. No, we're not looking to discipline people. We're changing processes. The photo on the left-hand side, these are public documents. I'll share these with anybody that wants to see these. We never marked our gates on the turnpike. Why? Because we knew where our gates were. But we had a doctor get on the gate, and we thought he was saying he's a pool house road, and he was a schoolhouse road. Is that a problem? Yeah. Toyota Prius hydroplane went underneath a tractor trailer. We did that after action review because it went so well. And after we did that, they started saying we always started smelling really bad chemicals. We started having a problem. Is that a problem? Did you back up, look at anything? Nope, kept working it because we wanted to get them out. Okay, you risk being killed, die, because we want to rush in. And again, so our after action reviews, we do a timeline and we come up with strengths, areas, improvements, needs, wants, suggestions. This one that we just did for Pennsylvania responder that was killed last year. We just completed this, turned it over to the fire company, and we talked to the responders. As part of this, one of the firefighters called me up and said, "Hey, we used to carry 5 cones on our apparatus, and then one of them got hit. Then we carried 4 cones, and then one of them got hit. Then we carried 3 cones, and one of them got hit. We carried 2 cones." And I said to the chief, "Don't you think we should buy more cones?" And his response was, "No, they're just going to get hit anyway." Do we have that mentality in our agency? Do we need to change that? Do we need to be the voice? We need to come together. We need to work together. This was a move over event that we did up in Pennsylvania on March of last year. That fire truck belonged to Riley, Tyler Laudenslager. He bought that for his daughter. His daughter was 10 months old when Tyler was hit and killed, cut in half. Married a high school sweetheart. The 2 trucks there for towing, both of those guys were, both those agencies have had tow operators struck and killed. Okay, conclusion. Communication is the key. We got to talk. Don't forget to listen and breathe. Train and coordinate the response before the emergency occurs. Establish instant command. Talk about unified command. Work together and communicate. Be professional. And don't be afraid of change. Again, what did I say? Be the voice. Good enough to the enemy, your best. And no shortcuts to safety. So thank you.
Many thanks to these practitioners and strategists, not just for presenting during the National Traffic Safety Summit, but for your ongoing efforts to further safety on the road. Of course, this was just a small sampling of the wealth of content contained in the summit. If you'd like to watch the full event, you can find it on our YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube and search for National Traffic Safety Summit to find the full content, or find a link in the description below. And please join us again later for part 3 of Inside the National Traffic Safety Summit, where we will reflect on this first summit and consider lessons learned, respond to analysis of challenges and opportunities, and consider the role of road safety in the years ahead. Thanks today to Christopher Mitchell, our Manager of Digital Content and Strategy, for producing this episode. And of course, many thanks to you for listening to this episode of Lifeline, a Precinct 444 podcast from the National Law Enforcement Museum. We hope you enjoyed this episode and will join us again for more content from Lifeline. Please subscribe to Precinct 444 on your favorite podcasting platform to stay connected and to receive our latest content as soon as it drops. And we would love to hear from you. Send in your questions, comments, and feedback to precinct444 at nleomf.org. You can help us make our content even better. The National Law Enforcement Museum is located at 444 East Street Northwest in Washington, D.C., and is dedicated to telling the story of American law enforcement. We expand and enrich the relationship between law enforcement and the community through educational journeys, immersive exhibitions, and insightful programs. Find us online at lawenforcementmuseum.org. Until next time, stay safe. We'll see you at the precinct.